long silvery trichomes that allow the wind to pick them up like little helicopters and transport them to different areas. So their seed dispersal is unique in many ways. Animals and man also carry them. And that's because some of those seeds have little barbs on them. They have trichomes and they look like little barbs, and they will stick to anything. They stick to your shoes, they stick to your clothing. You walk off somewhere and you start trying to get them off. So you yourself are dispersing them, taking them to new locations where they can grow. And they cling to animal fur, they cling to feathers, they cling to feet. You can't get rid of them. They're going to be everywhere you go. And then there's, I wanted to mention the trichomes. I know all of you know that trichomes are the plant hairs. And we mentioned the one on the dandelion, the long silver little plant hairs. But there's all kinds and all shapes and all sizes, all kinds of trichomes. And that also gives them an edge because they have trichomes that deter herbivores, for example. They have trichomes that cause irritations on your skin. Think about the stinging nettle, the little trichomes that look like hypodermic needles that make you very uncomfortable. They have trichomes that are very short and sticky, like on the anaqua tree. You feel the anaqua leaf, just like sandpaper. Well, an herbivore is not going to like that feeling when they try to bite that plant or that leaf. So it's again, just another adaptation that enables them to survive in all kinds of conditions. And I also mentioned explosive force. All of you are familiar with the wild petunias. Wild petunias have a pod, a long pod that the seeds are in. And with the right kind of heat and with the right kind of moisture, they explode. And they spread the seeds far from the original plant. So that's another way of actually moving them into another location. Many, many different types of adaptations. I don't have all of them here because we're going to talk about some of those adaptations also later on in the program, like the long tap roots and the creeping and climbing stems, all of those things that are part of what makes a weed successful wherever it is. Okay, next. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, if you look at this photo, you see the date, 2014. A group of master naturalists and I were working out at Blucher Park. This is from Blucher Park. And what you're looking at is a vine, a beautiful vine, I have to say, that makes a beautiful yellow flower. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's cat claw vine. It was brought here in 1947 as an ornamental. And now we can't get rid of it. It's one of those beautiful things that, you know, in some places you don't really want them. And Blucher Park is one of those places. It is considered a noxious weed. And we'll find out why in a few minutes. But in our own town, it is not yet thought about as a noxious weed, except at Blucher Park. Okay, notice the tree or the shrub and the vine all over it. They smother the vegetation. They kill whatever they climb on. And let me tell you, they alter the landscape if you let them go. So this weed is still sold online, and it's very popular in Arizona. And it needs to stay there. They don't have anything else growing in Arizona, so yeah, you have better control over it in a place like that. Next slide. Okay, here's the definition, the simple definition of a weed as stated by the Weed Science Society of America. A plant that grows wherever you don't want it. It has no value where it grows. It's undesirable where it grows. That's a weed. That's the type of plant I think has the least impact on the environment. The weed classification, the very first classification. All of them are weeds, but they have different impacts on the natural environment. And I'm not going to go through all the examples because, I mean, you look at them very quickly, you see. These are all places where you can find a weed or a plant that you can call a weed. I, for example, have pigeonberry at home. And pigeonberry is a little native plant. The birds love the berries that it produces, and I love the plant. They grow all over my garden. But as I walk along the path through my garden, because I have a very dense garden, I walk along the path, it'll be growing right on my path, right in the cracks between the stepping stones. I pull them up. It's in my way. It's a weed. I leave it everywhere else, but I pull it up if it's where I don't want it. And that's exactly what the definition tells you. The location classifies the plant. Okay, next photo. Okay, here we go with the two other classifications, noxious weed, and then after this one, invasive weed. Notice noxious. Now they're using the word nuisance. You can use both, but they really have changed it to nuisance. And noxious implies, look at this, harmful, unhealthy, troublesome, bad for the well-being of humans and animals. Detrimental to crops, nursery stock, to irrigation, like canals, navigation, and recreation. And then it tells you that locally you can designate a plant, a noxious plant, locally or statewide or nationally. It can be an economic threat to man, the environment, and agriculture. And this is an error. I said most noxious weeds are native plants. That's not true. It can be native or non-native. But it's a plant that grows aggressively and that can cause problems if you ingest them or if you come in contact with them. And we're going to talk about some of those noxious weeds and why they can be so troublesome. But those are all the criteria that they use to classify a noxious weed. I took this from the Master Naturalist Manual because I thought it was a very good description of the impact that it can have on the natural habitat. The invasion of noxious weeds has created a level of destruction to America's environment and economy that is matched only by the damage caused by floods, earthquakes, wildfires, hurricanes, and I can't remember what that is behind the photo. I don't know what happened there. But imagine that, lots and lots of destruction. And I want you to look at the photo. I want you to look at this photo. I think it went back too far. Yeah, this one, where we are now. That's a photo of the tendrils of the cat claw vine. I wanted to show you this. You see the three-pronged claw-like structure? That's what they cling with, and that's what they rip your skin with, and that's what they, rip your clothing with. They're tough, very tough to eradicate. You can't eradicate them. You can control them, but not eradicate them, and I'll tell you why later. Go ahead and change the slide. Next slide. Okay, these are examples of weeds. This one you probably can recognize. This is the Parthenium, and it is an introduced. There are two species. This is the introduced species. It's very common in our area. The little cauliflower heads, they look just like little cauliflowers. Parthenium is a plant that can be a noxious weed in farm fields, just like the common sunflower, like the silverleaf, nightshade. All of those can be serious problems in farm fields. If they meet that criteria that we looked at a minute ago, they can be classified as a noxious weed. This is straggler daisy, the little aster with a yellow flower. You see it right there. And it's a ground cover. That is a little ground cover. And I have these are pictures from my own yard, most of them. I go around pulling this up also, if it's in the wrong place. If it's in the right flower bed, it's wonderful because it maintains the moisture in the soil. It has lots of benefits, protects the soil. And it's also an erosion control plant. Any of these ground covers, if you have a bare spot and you let them grow over that bare spot, it's going to prevent erosion. It is going to help maintain that moisture. Here's another one. This is frog fruit. Okay. This is frog fruit. And frog fruit is in the Verbinaceae family. Phyla, it's the genus Phyla. And some people don't like it. I like it. I like it a lot. We have it on our Master Naturalist garden. But it's also a ground cover, and it's also aggressive. It will spread out and encroach on other plants. So again, it's all about management. And it's one that you can manage easily. I call it a weed. I give it the weed classification for myself instead of a noxious weed, although in some places it can be considered a noxious plant. It is a good pollinator plant. It's the host plant for the host and the nectar plant for I think it's the Phaon crescent butterfly. So it's a really neat plant. Now here on the top, guys, this is a morning glory, Convolvulaceae family. And this is the red-centered morning glory, Epome aminicola, I think it's called. And it is an introduced plant from Paraguay. We have this all over the garden at the botanical gardens. You'll see, when you look at the virtual tour of the garden, we'll look at this, the first one that we look at. Morning glories are beautiful, but you have to manage them. This one, I pick all the time at the garden. I tear it off bushes, shrubs, trees, all the time at the garden, because it can, just like any vine that has creeping stems or climbing stems, it can completely smother a plant if you let it. And so a very good example of what they can do. If you've heard of the field bindweed, the word bind, that tells you what it does. The field bindweed is one that farmers have learned how to manage, and they have spent thousands, millions of dollars managing it, and have also lost millions of dollars of crops because of it. It is a tough one to deal with. That's the bind, the other one, the field bindweed, which is also introduced. Some of the native ones are Also gorgeous. I have the Alamo vine at home on my fence to the backyard. I like it a lot. I keep it under control. It's not very much of a problem, but it's still a convolvulaceae. It is still a morning glory. And if you let it go, it will start covering everything that you have in your garden. Next slide. Okay. Here at the top left, we have Corona de Reina or Queen's Wreath. I'm sure you all have seen these. This is at the Botanical Gardens, and I want you to notice how the fence is leaning. They fixed it now, but it was leaning because of the weight of the vine. It is a wonderful pollinator plant, covered with bees all the time. But look at what it's doing. It has very woody stems. It's growing out on the ground, and it will totally cover that fence, given plenty of time. It will totally cover it. And I have one at home that a friend gave me 25 years ago. I didn't want it because I knew what they did. And I planted it anyway, just being nice. And I have battled that vine for the last 25 years. I fight with that vine almost weekly because I have to pull it off the trees, I have to pull it off the shrubs, I have to snip it off at the base on the ground, and as soon as we have another rain, it will be back again. So it's one that I really have to manage and keep under control. Next to it is one of the sedges. This is one of the flat sedges, also from the garden. And it's in a place, sedges love water, remember. So you have to beware if you find a lot that you want to put something on and it has lots of sedges growing on it. That tells you the condition of that soil. That soil is wet. That soil holds a lot of water. Anytime it rains, the rain flows right, the water runs right over it, and it stays in the ground and it stays wet. And it would not be a very good place to build anything. But the sedges can be a real problem in many areas. In the middle, I don't know what the red lines are that I'm seeing, but in the middle, kind of has a grayish hue over it. It is not a very good picture, but that is guinea grass, Rocla, guinea grass. And guinea grass was imported from Africa as a forage grass. And it's one of those grasses that is very aggressive. It is one of the top 10 invasives in Texas, one of the top 10, okay? Because it will completely change the landscape of an area in a very short period of time, very fast. Millions of seeds in the ground, very fast growth. Give it a little bit of rain and all you see is guinea grass. This is at Suter Park, is where this picture was taken. I used to take my students there to study the native plants, to study the trees, to study the birds that we could see on the outflow from the water treatment plant to Oso Bay. And then I stopped. In a few years, the whole park was totally covered by guinea grass. All you could see was guinea grass. And this is, I know y'all know the term allelopathic. Guinea grass is supposed to be strongly allelopathic, which means that it produces chemicals that inhibit the growth of native plants. And let me tell you, there weren't any native plants left, and there still aren't. They went in there a couple of years ago to eradicate the guinea grass and the Papanac trees that are also invasive. And they did a very good job. You could see the bay again, looking through the forested area. But they didn't go back to continue the process. You can't start to try to get rid of some of these things and then leave them for another year or two. In less than a year, it will look the same way it did before they started. Remember, we're dealing with weeds that grow very, very fast, take over an area very fast. This is down here on the right bottom corner is the crabgrass. There are several species of crabgrasses. We will see it also in the virtual walk through the garden. You'll be able to see why they call it a crabgrass. And this is a real pesky weed in many of our gardens. This one on the top right is one of the snail seed vines. Have you ever tried to pull a snail seed vine out of the ground? You know, or have you ever tried to take the stem and cut it in half with your hands? I can't do it. It is a tough little vine. It has a very long taproot, like many of the weeds. They have long taproots that anchor them to the ground very, very well. And the stems on this vine feel like they're made out of some kind of plastic. You have to clip them. I can't take them apart. And so this is another one that occupies my time because I walk through the garden almost daily and I have little clippers and I clip them everywhere I see them. They can damage your native plants, your plants that you want to keep in the garden. And I know I didn't mention the parthenium. The parthenium on the left bottom over here. This is right at that back gate to the garden where you go walk into the garden and there's a cedar elm right there on the corner. That's usually you don't have anything growing there. They mow it all the time. You have the straggler daisy, and you have the yard mallow that are lawn substitutes in many places, and they mow them all the time. You have a few little partheniums sticking out here and there, but right after we had maybe about 2 or 3 days of rain, heavy rains, about a week after that, I went back to the garden to do some work, and the parthenium had completely taken over that area. It was a thick, dense stand of them, just to show you how quickly they can take over. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. Next slide. All right, the sunflower, common sunflower, Helianthus annuus. This, I've included this because this is one of the plants that can really significantly reduce the crop yield for farmers if they don't manage them. But now they are beginning to realize the benefits of growing sunflowers in their fields, in their crop fields. And they're being used as nurse plants. Now, the word now for weeds that are used by gardeners and by farmers is nurse plant. And we'll talk about why later on when we look at the benefits. But the sunflower is the one that can cause a serious problem. It can be a noxious plant in some areas. And you know, I found out one thing about sunflowers. One of the things that they can do, of course, they make the soil better, but one of the things that they can do is actually remove contaminants from the soil. They have been used to remove uranium from soil when Chernobyl occurred. and they are used to remove other contaminants from the soil. Okay, go ahead to the next one. Invasive weed. Here's the definition of invasive weed. Non-native. This is what makes it different from a noxious weed. It is an introduced plant. Okay, it is introduced. And of course, we know that it competes for nutrients and space and sunlight and water with native plants. And that's why they're so destructive. And they also bring in diseases and pests that our plants, that our native plants, have no defenses against. So you always have to think about that. They are aggressive, they spread very rapidly into natural ecosystems. And I'm going to show you some of the top invasive weeds that we have in our area. So we can go to the next one. Okay. Here we have 4 of the top 10 invasives in Texas. Top 10. And the first one that you are looking at is the giant cane or giant reed. And then you have the pepper tree, the Brazilian pepper tree. And on the bottom you have salt cedar, and then you have the papanak. They're all found here. It's not hard. It's very easy to find them. Let me put it that way. When I was volunteering for Texas Invasives, my job was to go out. I drove many different places in the area to locate invasive plants. And these are some of the plants I located and took pictures of. To locate them, document them, get some information on where they were growing, and send all that data to the state. And this one right here was brought in as an ornamental from India. Okay, it is a beautiful plant, but it can cause so many problems. It competes with the native plants. It completely does away with the native plants, displaces them. And when you displace native plants, you displace the native animals. And so you're really reducing the biodiversity anywhere where this plant is growing, where some of these other invasives are growing. I saw a big stand of this at the Big Bend area near the Rio Grande, one of the canyons in the Rio Grande. And it was a very narrow part of the river in that canyon and very shallow. And the giant cane was growing almost all the way across. By now, I'm sure it is all the way across. And so one of the problems they cause is they interfere with the flow of water. So you can imagine that water builds up on one side and the other side doesn't get much water coming through. And that's going to change the landscape of that area. And the other thing about this that I learned is that the cattle fever tick from Mexico lives or gets on these canes and can go all the way across the river to the US side, crossing over on the canes. So they watch this very carefully also because of that. So that's the giant reed, very common. You can see it on Ocean Drive. Drive around Corpus Christi, you'll see it. There's several places on Ocean Drive. Some of the most tourist loved places have the giant cane growing. This is the Brazilian pepper tree. Another one that's introduced, and another top 10 invasive. And the Brazilian pepper tree is loved by a lot of people. It's beautiful. They are beautiful. But they are just, what can I say? They disrupt the habitat so much for native plants and for native animals that it's unbelievable. And it's also an allelopathic plant. It inhibits the growth of native plants because of the compounds that it puts in the ground. And they tried to get rid of this. It grows all along the coastal areas from here on up. And you could see them everywhere. We have some growing on Alameda close to me. People have them in their yards. That's a big, big mistake. They have a huge root system. It takes big, strong men and machinery to get this plant out of the ground. It is tough. It is tough. We have tried it. We can't do it. So it's in the family of the sumac, poison ivy, poison oak, same family. So it makes a sap that is actually irritable to people that are touching it, working with it. You might really be allergic to it. So yeah, another one we're trying to get rid of. The salt cedar that you see right here is at Sunset Lake Park. And you see Nueces Bay on one side, and then the salt cedar growing right along the shoreline. And then you have the road of Sunset Lake Park. And then next to it, you have the lake, the Sunset Lake. And for many years, you saw a wall of cedars growing on each side of that road, on the coast on the side where the bay is, and on the side where the lake is. And they went in there and they cut them back. I don't know what else they did with them, but they cut them back and they were gone. But now they're coming back again. Same problem at the botanical gardens. They went through and they tried to get rid of the cedars, but they're coming back again. And another project, I think I mentioned before, that if they don't continue it, if they don't periodically do the same thing over again, the weeds win. They win. Very easy for them to win. This is Papanak. Papanak was, look at the pods, by the way, and all the seeds in those pods. It's a very, very nice looking little tree. They're not huge trees. They're very fragile looking, but it's highly, highly aggressive and invasive. And it was brought to the US because somebody thought, oh, what a wonderful tree for erosion control. Yeah, it is good for erosion control. But what they didn't know was that it was also very aggressive. And so now it is on the top 10 list of invasive species in Texas. Oh, and I forgot to mention on the salt cedar. Salt cedar is one of those weeds that has a very, very long taproot. And it actually literally sucks all the fresh water out of the ground. So it can be not good for the other vegetation. Okay. Next slide, Vince. Okay. Beneficial properties. I don't have them all there, but remember we said we're learning so much more. We have learned so much more about weeds that now the farmers are beginning to reap the benefits of the weeds because they've learned about them. They know how to use them to help their crops grow. And we know they're very good soil stabilizers. We know that they conserve soil moisture, especially the ground covers. We know that they also conserve nutrients like nitrogen in the soil. And the carbon that they use in photosynthesis is returned back, to the soil when the weeds become mulch, because they are used for mulch now. They provide food and shelter for natural enemies of pests. And what that means is that the sunflower is one that attracts so many different kinds of insects and the caterpillars. And those are the insects that would normally be eating the crops. So the farmers now realize that if they have sunflowers, they're going to manage them and they're going to keep them so that the insects will go to them and not to the crops. And it works. It works. They can be an indication of growing conditions, meaning, you know, with like the sedges, you know that it's a very low area, probably a very wet area most of the time. It's going to be a problem. If you know your weeds or research your weeds, you can tell about the compaction of the soil because of the weeds that are growing there. You can tell if the soil is acidic or alkaline because of the weeds that are growing there. So they give you a lot of, you can read them. If you can know how to read them, they give you a lot of good information about the condition of the soil that you're trying to use. And if you have weeds like the sunflowers and others, the amaranths, the pigweeds, you know, all kinds of weeds that they use now, they're a source of food and habitat for wildlife like birds. The farmers are beginning to see the return of the birds because they're using the sunflowers and other weeds to help them with their farming, making their crops better, or protecting their crops. And the birds, of course, go to the weeds and eat the pests. So it's a plus for everybody. And that's important. When I talked about tap roots, the tap roots grow deep into the soil and they make channels in the soil. When the plant dies, actually farmers, when the sunflowers die, they cut them at the base, they leave the roots in the ground and let them decay in the ground, and that adds organic matter to the soil. But the channels remain for a period of time. And if it rains, when it rains, the water passes through those channels, carrying nutrients into the soil. At the same time, those little channels that are created by the roots can also be used by earthworms. And earthworms are also good to keep the soil nice and loose and not compacted. So they have many, many, many benefits. Let me see, I'm thinking of something, and I mentioned nurse. They're soil conditioners, of course, and they also attract pollinators. I hadn't thought about that. And they're very good at covering bare ground, and we mentioned that. But they're also what they call now nurse crops. And to give you an example of what they are doing with weeds as nurse crops, I read about a citrus farmer that lets the weeds grow in his citrus groves. And those weeds are 6 feet tall. And what they do is protect the young buds as they're forming the fruit, the flower, the bud, the flower, and then the fruit. And they protect the trees from strong winds, from heavy rains, from hail, from just adverse weather conditions. Totally protect them. When it's time to harvest the crop, he mows them down, they harvest the fruit, and he can actually say, my citrus fruit is bug free, because the bugs were all on the weeds instead of the citrus, and protect the crop also in many other ways. So that's what we mean by nurse weeds. And they're using them in tomato farms to keep off the hornworms that ruin the tomatoes. They're using them in melon fields. They're using them to grow okra and squash. all kinds of crops because of the benefits for the soil as well as for the crops. I think that's the last slide, isn't it, Vince? That should be the last slide that you have. And if you have some questions, on chat. Oops, there's a lot of questions on chat. Should we just do the video? I don't know what the red lines are, where they came from. Should we do the video clips of the walking tour of the garden?
Yes.
Okay. Now, will they have sound? If they have sound, because last time I couldn't get any sound, remember, but they may be getting the sound, so I don't have to narrate it over the sound. We'll try. Whenever you're ready. Starting the second part of the Weeds Lab presentation, and this will involve a virtual walk through the botanical gardens. I'm not getting anything on it. They may not be either. Weeds that we talked about, identifying them, looking at a right.
And hear but not see.
We're not seeing anything.
Give me a moment.
Okay.
See how many we can find in the garden. And right here we have already one that is a real pest. This is a.
There we go.
Lacy. It is one of the morning glory vines that I believe is this is.
That was my phone.
Were you getting sound?
I'm getting sound.
Tell your kids to stop streaming. That's what happened in my house. Jeff was using the internet.
I don't, not for my house. That was my phone in my purse that you heard in that video clip.
I was talking to Vince.
Oh, to Vince. Okay, I think that stopped before it was supposed to, Vince.
Yeah, let me see if I can rewind this.
Okay.
Yep.
We're starting the second part of the Weeds Lab presentation, and this will involve a virtual walk through the botanical gardens, looking at some of those pesky weeds that we talked about, identifying them, looking at a trait that may be an identification trait, and looking at adaptations that we talked about on the first part of the presentation, and see how many we can find in the garden. And right here we have already one that is a real pest. This is a convolvulaceae. It is one of the morning glory vines that I believe is this is I was talking about the morning glory vine. This happens to be the red center morning glory vine, and it's I believe it is a native plant, but it is it can be, a lot of the morning glories can be noxious weeds, what they call nuisance weeds right now. I want to show you the flower. Can you get the flower right there, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
There's the flower with the red center. They're usually whitish to rosy colored to a pink color. And I want you to notice how the vine is growing through the Mexican honeysuckle. It is growing through all of these plants that are in this garden. The weed has taken over. And remember, they are a vine, and vines will climb and twist and completely encircle the stems of other plants, and able to get, in order to get up into the sun, so they can get as much energy from the sun as possible. So that's one of their adaptations. Let's go over here.
Did you want to make any comments, Mary, before we go to the next clip?
No, that's fine. Let's go ahead to the next clip.
Okay.
Here is the flower that we were talking about. And you see the twining, the twisting of the vine on another plant, a grass, I think, that is found in this bed also. This is one of the weeds that you have to manage very, very well, or they will take over your garden. The same location, we have this really nice looking plant. This is Comelanaceae. It is one of the monocots, and this one is called Widow's Tears. And if you look at it, it has the really lovely flower with the two blue petals and then the white petal that is almost transparent. But what I really want you to look at, this adaptation. It looks like it has little prayer hands holding it up. You see that on both sides? That's called a spathe. And it actually holds up that flower and gives it a lot of support because they're kind of fragile. But this is another weed. I call it a weed. In the three classifications that we talked about earlier in the first presentation, I categorize things as weed, bad weed, ugly weed. This for me is one of just the weeds because you can manage it. You can manage it. It's easy to pull out of the ground. It's difficult to eradicate, but you can manage it. So that's an important one. Let me show you what it does over here if you don't manage it. Look at this bird of paradise, and look at the weed growing through the bird of paradise. And again, this is a growth habit that is an adaptation for reaching the light, getting the solar energy that they need to survive. So they will grow through anything and eventually cover it up. Here we are with another weed, one of the real pesky ones. If you look down on the ground, you have this weed that forms a mat. They are called sand mats, and they are in the Euphorbiaceae family. And I'll show you that if you take it and you pull it, you will see the milky sap that they produce. And that milky sap, you know how weeds can survive in any kind of conditions. The milky sap is something that helps them deter insects, and it can be toxic to some small animals also. So that's another thing, the growth habit. It's prostrate on the ground, so it grows laterally, and it likes to grow in areas that are open so it can spread out and reach the sun as well as it can. Let me show you what happens. Well, let me show you another thing. Right here. This is another of the euphorbia, of the Euphorbiaceae. This is the tall form. So you have the prostrate growth form, and you have the erect growth form. And what I want you to notice, you also have the milky weed, the milky sap. You see it right there. And I want you to notice where it's growing. It's in a very dense vegetation area. And in order for this weed to get enough solar energy, always about solar energy, they grow through and they grow very, very tall. So some grow tall and some grow in open spaces on the ground in order to maximize the energy from the sun. What we're looking at right now is one of the worst lawn grasses, garden grasses that you can find. This is crabgrass. And I want you to notice right here at the very center, notice the stems that are going out from it, kind of like in a star shape. That is a sure way to label this as one of the crabgrasses. And there are about 5 or 6 crabgrasses. I can't tell you which one it is. But again, a weed that can be detrimental to your garden.
Good.
Here's another grass that can be a problem, although not as much as a problem as the crabgrass and the guinea grass that you may have heard about. This is Johnson's grass. Very large, tall plants, I think easy to recognize by most. And while we're standing here, I want Kevin to get a picture of the vine. Look at the vine growing on the oleanders. This is the same vine that we looked at earlier. And you see how they begin to cover a plant. And only because they're trying to grow up through them and up to the highest point where they can get that energy from the sun. What you're looking at now is Corona de Reina, or Queen's Wreath. And it's a gorgeous vine, as you can see. But look at the growth on it. And look how it's growing down in the ground, also on the ground. But you have to remember something about this vine. Some people love it, some people don't. I don't. One reason that it's good is because if you look, you see all these little bees on it. It is a great pollinator plant, very good pollinator plant. But I spend much too much time managing the vine and trying to keep it out of my trees, my shrubs, and every other part of the garden. And I do that probably on a bi-weekly basis, trying to keep it controlled. So this is a good landscape plant if you have a lot of room for it.
If you have a large yard and you have a fence where there are no trees, no shrubs, nothing like that, this is the perfect vine for that fence line.
This is a weed called low amaranth that can become a problem in your garden. One way to identify it is you see the light colored stripe or bar on the leaves. Can you see that on there? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's one way to identify it. It also has the red stems, and it is in the Amaranthaceae family. And the thing about amaranths is that they produce thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds. So when they put out seeds, they're back in the ground, and then they will germinate when they have optimal conditions to do that. So this is one that you watch for also. This is portulaca. Portulaca is a lovely little succulent weed. The leaves are thick and succulent, and the stems are too. And notice that the stems also have that red color. And they're also, their growth habit is a prostrate growth habit. But look at the flower. The flower is a yellow flower. They're just beginning to open. They open a little bit later in the morning. But portulaca can also overtake your gardens if you don't manage them. Please don't think that I go around pulling every weed that I see.
because I don't. I only pull them if they're in my way, if they're not where I want them to be, which is the definition of a weed, something that grows where it's not wanted. So portulaca is, I think, a lovely little plant. By the way, portulaca is one of the crop weeds now. They grow it as a crop because it's edible. The whole plant is edible. I don't know if you can hear me, but this is nut sedge growing in the rose garden. And you can see what it has done to the rose garden. You can identify a sedge because of the triangular stems that they have. And this, I believe, is the purple nut sedge. It's more common here because you see the seed pods, the seed heads or the flower heads are purplish in color. And look at the triangular stem on them. Let me tell you guys, if you see this stuff growing in a lot where you plan to build something and you have a lot of nut sedge, beware, because that's an indication of a very low spot where water stays, and you're going to be sorry if you build anything on it. So this will tell you the conditions of the soil in a certain area. Very pesky weed. This is another sedge growing in this very low area. There's like a little ditch, a little water flow area right here. There's standing water right over there. So you see what happens in very wet conditions. They can't get rid of this. They just mow it when they can and control it that way. This is the leatherwood plant, but growing in here, I'll see if I can pull out one, is a vine, another vine, and this vine is called possum grape or marine ivy, and it has the tendrils that it uses to climb out of the very dense areas and up where it can reach the sun. And it has very thick leaves. They say that if you crush them, that they have a bad odor. So if you want to smell them, you can if you ever see it. But this is one of those common pesky plants that grow in most gardens also. If we look in this flower bed, notice that the Drummond's oxalis has taken over. If we look in this flower bed, notice that the Drummond's oxalis has taken over. It has the trifoliate leaf that is described as a shamrock. And this plant is, it can cause problems. They're easy to pull out, but you're always going to spend a lot of time pulling them out if you think you have to have them out of your garden. They make a real pretty purple flower, blue flower, purple flower, and they can be a good one to look at. I consider it one of the, better weeds, not one that can be too much of a problem for you. Master Naturalist garden, and we have a couple of weedy plants here that are natives, but I'll have to go back to the definition. They are weeds because they're growing where we don't want them to grow. And one of them is this hackberry, the spiny hackberry right here, both of them. You try to grab them with your hands, you'll know how spiny they are. And these belong here. They're part of the Tamaulipan habitat, vegetation area. But we're always trying to pull them out. Now, one good thing may be that they have very long roots.
see that? And long tap roots in a weed are really a benefit to the garden because when you pull them out, they leave a channel in the soil and it allows water and nutrients to pass through those channels into the soil. So they help to enrich the soil to put moisture back in the soil. Any kind of a tap-rooted plant or a tap-rooted weed. And another one is right behind this, right here. And these are really tough. Look at the root on that. You see that? And this is also a native, a tree. And if you look at the leaves, this is a soapberry. If you look at the leaves, you see that the rachis on the leaf is winged, has little wings on it. So that's how you can identify a soapberry. And we pull these out of the garden also because they're growing everywhere and we can't allow that. We'd have a soapberry forest if we let it happen. This is the convolvulaceae again, the morning glory that we looked at before. And you see how many little plants we have growing in the garden. I left them there so we could look at them and show you how quickly they can take over. But every time that I work out here, or anybody works out here, we pull them out. They're easy to pull out of the ground and get rid of. But they're already taking over. They're already growing on some of the plants that we want to keep. You see it right there also. This is frog fruit. Frog fruit is a native plant. I like it, but many people don't. It takes management. And if you'll notice right here, the grass is growing up to it, or it has grown out into the grass. And what we always have to do is to start cutting and not allowing it to do that. But again, it takes management. It's a good butterfly plant. I believe a host plant for one of the crescent butterflies. So it's a good one to have, but can be a problem. This is frog fruit. Frog fruit is a native plant. Right here in these containers, we have a couple of euphorbia or euphorbiaceae that are growing. One of them is called acalifa. This is acalifa. This is a euphorb. They don't have the milky sap. They only have the clear sap. But they all have, and they're really tiny, so I went ahead and took some of the seed pods from a tallow tree. And you see the shape of those seed pods? It's a 3-seeded capsule. All of the euphorbias, or all of the euphorbiaceae that make the seed pods, you can identify. You can at least say, oh yeah, I know what that is. It's in the Euphorbiaceae family because it has those 3-seeded pods. Okay? Acalifa has them. They're tiny, so you're not going to be able to see them. And then there's this one also, another Euphorbiaceae. This one is different. I kind of like this one because the leaves at the base are a different shape than the leaves at the top. You see that? And it's called a grass leaf Euphorbiaceae. The grass leaf. And the little flowers are tiny, and the little seed pods will also be very, very small. Can be seen with a magnifying glass, but not with the naked eye. And look at the root on that. Look at that. These are plants that can keep, they're soil conditioners because they can keep the soil nice and loose and soft. The weeds are good for something. The farmers are beginning to find out. These These are sunflowers, but not the common sunflowers that grow in the area that you see growing in fields in the area, and see them growing in crop fields. So farmers have learned to manage them, and they're finding out that they are very beneficial for the soil in their fields. Sunflowers add organic matter to the soil. They are long rooted, so they make channels that water can pass through. They also attract a lot of the bugs that might eat the crops. So they're finding out if they leave some of the sunflowers attract bugs, and the bugs attract birds. And these are sunflowers, but not the common sunflowers that grow in the area that you see growing in fields in the area, and see them growing in crop fields. So farmers have learned to manage them, and they're finding out that they are very beneficial for the soil in their fields. Sunflowers add organic matter to the soil. They are long rooted, so they make channels that water can pass through. They also attract a lot of the bugs that might eat the crops. So they're finding out if they leave some of the sunflowers attract bugs, and the bugs attract birds. And
Can we go to some of the questions, Vince? Can you hear me?
Actually, Grace, you were Mary Grace, you're very soft-spoken, and I've been kind of captioning as we go. Because it's been hard to hear you.
You haven't heard me? I've got it on the loudest.
It's better now than it was earlier.
Okay.
But the presentation and the videos were both kind of quiet.
Oh. That's bad because they're pretty loud here. I've got it so loud I can't imagine.
But
Yeah.
but we've been working it. It's
Okay.
cool, especially
Okay.
because you taught me so much when I trained that I've been able to add my own 2 cents as well.
Are there, I'm glad you did that. Are there questions on chat that we need to answer? I noticed there's quite a few questions, I think, but I don't know how to get to that. Do I click on it?
People weren't exactly sure which plant was the Parthenium.
Parthenium is the falls ragweed.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, with the little cauliflower heads.
Scrolling. The one you called Pomponac, is that the one I also know as lead tree?
It's the white lead tree, the Pomponac, Lucina leucocephala, I believe.
And is there an easy way we can tell between a native lead tree and the Pomponac?
Which lead tree are you talking about? There's a golden lead.
There is one native to Texas.
Are you talking about tepehuaje?
I'm not sure. It's just that it's very habitat specific, whereas the other one will grow close to water, and I always get them mixed up in my head. So my default is ask the master naturalist before you cut it down, but it probably needs to be cut down.
Yeah, the difference is in the leaf structure.
Okay.
The Pomponac leaves are much larger. The leaflets are larger than the in the tepehuaje. There's tepehuajes at Suter Park. There's tepehuaje at Blucher Park. They have fine, fine, small leaflets. So that's the best way to do it because they're so different.
Okay, so the ones that line the road at Suter Park, are those Pomponek or Tehuaje? I'm sorry, pardon my pronunciation.
Pomponek is, yeah, there's quite a few of those, although they took a bunch of them out. They may be coming back. They left the tepehuaje because the tepehuaje is a native tree. The tepehuajes are the larger, much larger trees. And I noticed that some of them are dying now.
That will help me learn it. Thank you. And then once I learn it, I can teach others.
You're welcome.
Oh, more questions popping up.
There's quite a few questions on there.
What is the name of the euphorbia, like the tallow tree seed pod?
Well, there were two of them. Khalifa is one that's very common in the area. And a Khalifa is one of those spurges. It's a spurge family, euphorbia family. A Khalifa is one that changes its growth habit depending on the conditions that it's growing in. If it's growing in a very dense vegetated area, it grows very straight up with very little branching so that it can get out of the vegetation. And if it's growing in an open area, I love it because it does this. If it's growing in an open area, it branches out from the base and it's wider at the base, kind of like a teardrop shaped plant. And it's really interesting that it has the ability
Tara,
to do that.
Yes, we've heard of wild poinsettia. In fact, that'll tie into a question I have. I have a spurge that I thought was wild poinsettia, and now it's branching off and has little bitty white flowers, almost like the snow drift or diamond euphorbia.
Yeah,
and I know it's a native, but I don't know what it is. It has purple at the joints.
Ah, yes, that tells me right there, but I can't think of which one it is, but there is one that has the little joints are purple, marked with purple. And that's a definite ID trait. And I just can't think of the plant right now. I don't think it's a Khalifa.
As a baby, and now it's a completely different euphorbia, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should kill it or keep it.
If I find out, Beth, I'll let you know.
Okay. I'll be waiting for your email.
I know I have it. I know what you're talking about. I'll just have to look it up.
Miss Mary,
another question is how to rein in Mexican petunias once they've popped up in the lawn everywhere.
Well, actually, you know, they're kind of pretty. They can be a problem. If you don't want them, the only thing you can do is dig them up or mow them down. It's kind of like the straggler daisy and the yard mallow in a lot of places, and the frog fruit. A lot of places in some towns they use them as lawn substitutes, and they bloom and they're beautiful. They're short. They're ground covers, and then they mow them down whenever they want to mow them down, and then they come back up again. So it's
so if you mow them before they go to seed.
Yeah, if you mow them before if you pick them before they go to seed, they're not putting those seeds out in the ground. And they're not going to die out that quickly. Let me tell you something about a weed that I always remember. Given the opportunity, a weed will reclaim its space very quickly. Very quickly. When we're all gone, the weeds are going to take over. They will reclaim their space easily. So that's why I say management. And that's what I do in my yard all the time. I'm always managing. I walk through my yard, probably every other day with clippers in my hands and something to dig with, because I'm getting rid of some of the weeds that I don't want in certain places, and cutting the little coculus vine away, because that thing will destroy everything.
So it's management. Keeps me busy, very busy.
Miss Mary Grace, this is Tara Buffington, and I
Yes.
have something growing on the side of my house that I've identified, I think, as an arrowhead plant. Have you ever heard of that?
Arrowhead, is that because of the leaves?
Yes, ma'am. They're shaped like they look like an ivy leaf vine, but it's completely taken over one of the trees in my yard.
Have you seen it bloom?
No, there's no bloom on it. It looks like it's just a greenery kind of plant. And I don't know if the previous owner planted it in the ground.
But it's a vine.
Yes, ma'am. It's a vine.
Well, if you don't pull it off your trees, it's going to smother your trees.
Well,
If you don't know what it is, if it doesn't have a blossom, it's hard to tell. There are some morning glory vines that have leaves that are shaped kind of like you described, arrowheads. If you look up convolvulaceae or morning glory vines, look up the different kinds of morning glory vines. The leaves are all different. They don't all look the same like the one I showed you. Some are very scalloped, and some of them are very thin and almost arrowhead-like.
These are large and glossy. I mean,
large and glossy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Tara,
I'm sorry.
Tara, by any chance, is that the Syngonium arrowhead vine from South America?
I have absolutely no idea. That's why I'm asking. What I'll do is
Okay. Can you do a quick Google search and I'll ask one of your classmates questions from the chat?
Okay. What was the name of that again?
Syngonium, Syngonium. It's a South American vine that holds the same niche as pothos does in Asia.
I'm surprised it hasn't bloomed, because most of the time the ones that are introduced are brought here because they thought they were beautiful, ornamental.
Well, their flowers are kind of like smaller,
very
negligible.
small.
Anyhow, we have like 3 questions in chat now.
Okay.
Okay, some of them are just responding to the arrowhead thing. The question is, have you found any poisonous weeds at the botanical gardens, or things that are irritants like stinging nettle?
Haven't found any stinging nettle, but as soon as we have a good rain, you'll find stinging nettle. That was always one of my favorite plants with my students. I'd say, could you get me that plant, please? And sure enough, it was always the worst kid in the class that would grab it. And they found out what stinging nettle was. But yeah, I think if we have some rain, you'll begin to see more of the stinging nettle. And I have seen it at the garden, but not very much of it.
And you all know that stinging nettle is like ant bites. It puts formic acid into you. So if you use baking soda, it will negate the sting, right?
Right. Yes.
We're not torturing children.
It's not torture.
Not too long.
No.
Okay, Tara, if you want to get rid of that vine, just chop it down in pieces and I'll feed it to my fish. They love it.
I want to remind everybody next week, classes are Tuesday and Thursday. They're not Monday and Wednesday. They are Tuesday, and the lab is on Thursday of next week.
I have another question here from Margaret Jordan. And I think she's talking about some of our wild melons, like the bitter melon and the cuckoo melon that may show up in our garden from time to time. She said she had a wild squash-like thing show up, and then people told her not to eat it, that it was some sort of green melon and then turned orange.
Is she talking about the little cucumber shape? Small, they look like little cucumbers. One of the vines. Is that what she's? They grow along the roadsides, I see them on 77.
No, more like this was more like a watermelon, but somebody else had the cucumber melon once.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't eat them. I know the little cucumber like vines. I know my mother and daddy used to pick those, and she cooked them.
Yeah, the little cucumber melons, that's cuckoo melon. That's a wild that endures
Cucumber.
our area very well. They're best when they're kind of yellow-green before they're full.
Yeah.
But the other one is called bitter melon, and it's usually more of a Central Texas thing, but it does occur in our area, particularly in the ranches.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
And I'm surprised if you're in the city if that got to you.
Yeah. No. Don't know much about that one.
I got Grace on the thing. I'm sorry. My class was told to call you Grace, and I still can't get it.
No, that's fine.
Mary.
No. Nobody calls me Mary. It's Grace.
Oh.
You're right. They've called me.
Vince yelled at me. So, okay.
Any other questions?
All right. I think we're done then.
Well, okay.
Thank you very much.
Well,
everyone's saying thank you and learned a lot. And
well, thank you all very much. I think about what we might have been doing out in this heat, trying to do the outdoor lab and the weeds, and I think we would all probably have died in 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh my God, this heat is terrible. Agreed.
Yes. This is quite different, and thanks to Vince, because I couldn't have done it without him if we had so many problems getting it together, but he did it. He took care of it.
If we get everybody to
so much.
Video and unmute, turn on your video and unmute, everybody.
Thank you, Miss Grace, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everybody. Grace, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, Grace. Thank you.
Okay, guys, the presentation she gave, along with all of the clips, I've uploaded to the calendar in VMS for today. So if you go to the calendar for September 2nd, you will see that all the clips and the presentation have been uploaded. So you can look at them. You can download them if you want to. Some of them take up quite a bit of space. So you may not want to download the clips, but you may want to download her presentation. And as soon as Kevin,
mine is that all those video clips, I'm working on it.
As soon as Kevin uploads the recording, I will upload it to the calendar, and you'll be able to see it there, and you or at least get the link to go to YouTube. Okay? All right.
Vance.
Yes. Somebody is saying
Vance.
yes.
Say. Okay, this is Linda, and one of my jobs with Master Gardeners is when it's your birthday, we'll send you a card. But I don't know on the interns, I don't know all of their birthday, just the month and the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could email that to me, my email is ARAGONMILL@yahoo.com. We'll get you on the list. And I'd appreciate your help with it.
Can you repeat that one more time for me?
Hold on a minute.
What?
Hold on a minute there, Linda. Let's have them send that to your VMS. Okay.
Okay.
Give me
Okay, I don't have it set up yet.
Never have got the information.
Well, and that ought to motivate you to get it set up.
Well,
I have to sit. I have the time to sit and look at the directions.
Okay, hang on a second here, everybody.
I enjoyed her presentation. We had a little vine, had a heart-shaped flower, a heart-shaped leaf, and a little teeny pink or white flower. And I want you to know that booger took over and killed our shrubs. And we cannot get rid of it. We have dug, we've rounded up, we've pulled.
Okay, this is Linda's. It's also Sandra Williams. They share this. They're helping with the VMS, and what she would like to get is your birthday, so she can send you a birthday card. She's
Just the month and the day.
Month and a day. You don't have to disclose your year. Okay, you can keep your vanity, right? But this is her official Gmail. It's by position. Okay, volunteer maintenance system dot nuesis mg from Master Gardener at gmail.com, and this is her name. So if you would send her your name and your birthday, she's got a roster. She's going to add it to it. All right. Anything else, Linda?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nope, that's it.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Not
Thank
unless
you,
she can tell me how to get rid of that little vine.
Yep. Guys, on Tuesday, have a good long weekend.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.